Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the third of 6 episodes this week on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. That's right, we are back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down all things AEW, but not only that, we are delivering your AEW All In Texas Ultimate Preview. It is AEW's biggest show of the year, and vintage Chris Vanini will be along for the ride to break down every single match on the card. But before we get to him, before we get to that, Silver King needs to remind you off the top that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews, all on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Also, follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show that we will read on the air. And you can vote in pre- and post-show polls surrounding premium live events and pay-per-views. And your votes factor into our instant analysis, which we do after all of those special events. Speaking of instant analysis and ultimate previews, let's just give you a quick reminder of what we've already done and what is still to come right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the third of 3 straight days delivering ultimate previews for the 4 major events this weekend. On Tuesday, we wrapped up the entire week in WWE, and we gave you a preview for Saturday night's main event. On Wednesday, not only did we give you an ultimate preview for WWE Evolution, we took a retrospective look at the original WWE Evolution, and we gave you an ultimate preview for NXT Great American Bash. Here we are Thursday, of course, with your AEW All In Ultimate Preview, and we're basically going to do those in the opposite order this weekend because our 4th, 5th, and 6th episodes are all coming Saturday and Sunday. Earlier Saturday evening, your AEW All In Instant Analysis. Later that night or early Sunday morning, whatever the time ends up being, it's going to be your Saturday night's main event and Great American Bash Instant Analysis. And then on Sunday, of course, we'll have your Evolution Instant Analysis. 6 episodes in 6 days. That's the type of performance-enhancing audio we feed into your ear holes right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. So with that out of the way, let's get into breaking down the entire week in AEW. The way this is going to work is I'm going to carry the load for much of what happened on television, Dynamite and Collision, solo here right off the top. Then we're going to bring vintage Chris Vanini in live this time for a full AEW All In Ultimate Preview. There'll still be some straggling content from Dynamite and Collision that we'll discuss as part of that instant analysis, but I feel like a lot of what's going to happen Thursday will be able to hang over until next week's AEW show. So starting with that breakdown, 6 of 11 matches across TV this week were storyline relevant. Collision was, again, real disappointing in that regard. Dynamite was a full go-home build for All In with only one match that was like random, unnecessary, and out of place. It's really crazy that the Collision from last Saturday was not all build for the big show. But let's get into talking about everything that happened on Collision. Claudio Castagnoli cut a really rough backstage promo demanding to settle the score with the Ops and win back the trio's titles at All In. Never mind the fact that Pac hasn't been around in 3 months and Gabe Kidd is not a member of the faction. Wheeler Yuta looked like an absolute muppet during this segment, his bangs hanging all the way down to or even past his nose. Guy looks ridiculous. On Dynamite, we had Samoa Joe against Yuta. Fans chanted, "Get a haircut," which, fair enough. Joe countered an O'Connor roll by locking Yuta in Coquina Clutch for the submission win. Kidd attacked Joe from behind with one of the trio's titles. The other Ops saved, so there you go. They're just going to throw Kidd into that match and put the trio's titles on the line at All In with zero actual reason for Death Riders to get a rematch or any other challenger stepping up in the interim. As we tape the show, I don't even believe the trio's title match has been set, but I think we're going to have to discuss it later in the Ultimate Preview. On Dynamite, Hangman Page, Will Ospreay, Powerhouse Hobbs, Katsuyori Shibata fought Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and the Young Bucks. This main evented. Normally, I'd have saved this for the Ultimate Preview, but since it involved dudes from 3 different matches, I figured we'd just cover it here early. Ospreay did a Sky Twister off of Hobbs' back Page did a moonsault into a pile of heels early. Hangman got the hot tag, went on a huge run. Ospreay did a great sell on a pair of super kicks, like Rock taking a stunner. Hobbs got powerbombed through a table ringside, basically as a way to eliminate him from the finish. Shibata ate BTE trigger, neutralizer, and the bulldog choke. And the referee called the match literal seconds after the choke was locked in, despite Shibata not tapping and not passing out. It was an utterly ridiculous finish to the match. Kid returned from earlier in the show to brawl as the heels dispatched the faces with ease. They brought back the plastic bags they used on Bryan Danielson, ready to suffocate Page and Ospreay when Swerve Strickland showed up, clearly sitting in some type of heavy machinery on the big screen, saying he was going to take control back. He dropped a crane onto the Bucks limousine, which, just like Swerve's house, was only established as something that even existed 1 week prior to getting destroyed. The faces used the distraction to get up on the heels, with Marina Shafir saving Mox from a chain at the end. The Bucks then ran out to look at their limo, asking how they would financially recover from that. Except, if you remember the entire setup of the limo deal, the vehicle was purchased by them with Tony Khan's credit card. So what Swerve destroyed was something valuable that belonged to Tony Khan that the Bucks were just using. So them being stressed out about the financial situation of the limo getting ruined was ridiculous, and it was nonsensical. It didn't even play to what the storyline was of why the limo existed in the first place. I digress. Swerve jumped off another piece of equipment. Somehow they didn't see him, and that was for a stomp, and it ended the show. There was a lot of convolution here, as I just dictated in the breakdown. I thought the part with the crane was pre-taped in daylight, but apparently you all are telling me the sun sets later in Texas. Still, this was after 9 p.m. I checked. It said that sundown was 8:38. Or sunset, I guess, it was 8:38. So this was 25 minutes later, and it was still light. So, I mean, I don't know. I trust that it was live, but it was just kind of weird for me as a viewer. Regardless of that, it was a cool spot. And it's something WWE has not done enough of recently. This was classic, like, Attitude Era stuff, just not executed as well as that used to be. But getting outside the arena, destroying property, that's always going to be fun in wrestling. It was interesting to see all the baby faces stand tall on the go-home, while simultaneously, Hangman did not get a singular moment to himself, given he's main eventing, and Mox got a promo that we're going to discuss later in the Ultimate Preview. I'll save any further discussion on this for when Vintage joins so we can talk about it together. But while it was a solid go-home segment, don't get it twisted, at the same time, it kind of left a little bit to be desired. I just wanted it to be a little tighter, I guess is the best way to put it. On Collision, Adam Cole opened the show saying the line that AEW, of course, through 100 episodes of Collision, is where the best wrestle.
Are you fucking kidding me?
He added, of course, that AEW has the best fans too. Fletcher answered, Kyle Fletcher that is, saying the future belongs to him as he's completely changed from the dude he was 2 years ago when he lost the ROH tag team titles to Cole and MJF at All In. Daniel Garcia came out angry about being overlooked, so Cole said he could get a title match whenever he wants, and he offered to fight both of them. Fletcher said that Garcia didn't deserve the shot, and Garcia agreed. He said, "I'm a loser. I need to earn it." So he offered to make their conveniently already booked match a number one contendership. This was a solid segment outside of the 5 minutes that were spent filleting AEW at the start. I appreciated Garcia saying he didn't deserve the shot and needed to fight for it because he truly did not deserve the opportunity. And that was positive for his character arc, like understanding that, yeah, okay, I speak a big game, but I lose all the frickin' time. So the main event of Collision was Garcia against Fletcher in a number one contendership. Garcia bladed. Fletcher hit a last ride style Liger bomb late. Garcia came back with the sharpshooter. They did the vertical suplex spot over the ropes before Fletcher hit a collar suplex ringside, then stared down Cole before hitting an apron bomb with Garcia like convulsing ringside for a 9 count. Fletcher immediately caught him coming back in the ring with a running boot and a brainbuster to win. I'd honestly have ended this with a countout. I know a countout is weaker than a pinfall, but Fletcher looked awesome, kind of sitting in the corner, waiting for the inevitable to happen. I mean, the guy was convulsing rings. First of all, he was convulsing. Then he took an apron bomb, and then he convulsed more, and he still got up and got into the ring in 9 seconds. Like, just do the countout. Why not? Like, AEW is all about protecting people. So why not protect Garcia there, which you love to do? Anyway, I appreciated the storytelling here. A far cry from AEW just booking this title match like they would have in the past. 3.75 stars, B+, match of the night, and the best part of Collision on Saturday. On Dynamite, Bandito and Brody King fought Proto Shida. Bandito fully flipped out of a tandem powerbomb attempt from the ropes. He followed with a frog splash for a broken fall. Fletcher avoided King into the barricade, booted him over it. Bandito hit a rope walk moonsault on Fletcher, only for Takeshita to murk him out of midair with a forearm and hit Raging Fire to win. Takeshita is fighting Bandito for the ROH title on Friday, so getting the win here did make a lot of sense. That match has not exactly been pushed on AEW TV, and given its expected quality, plus the fact that both guys competing in it are regularly on AEW TV, I'm actually shocked that this is not a part of the All In card. It's a way better match than a lot of the low card on All In. I know you need to sell the ROH show as well, but I don't know. It's Konosuke Takeshita. Like, put him on the main card. I'm sure he will be anyway, but I digress. Strong, exciting work from all four guys bell to bell here. On Collision, Mark Briscoe, Hologram, and Mystico beat Don Callis' family in 10 minutes. Why? Who knows? MJF and MVP interrupted on the big screen, saying they'd consider the confrontation segment and that MJF would pin Briscoe in the gauntlet before Mystico even enters the match. MVP spoke some decent Spanish. One of MJF's better promos, actually, since his return. There was a realism to it that you often don't feel when you see him in the ring, like searching for his low blow insult that he does so frequently. On Collision, FTR beat the Outrunners in 18 minutes. One guy got bloody. There was a bunch of near falls in succession, including Outrunners hitting Shatter Machine with a delayed cover for a broken false finish. FTR then hit Shatter Machine for the win as Stokely Hathaway held Truth Magnum back so he could not break the fall. This was the paradigm of the difference between a hot match and a great match. The wrestling was not necessarily great here. Some of it was actually ridiculous, but the match was booked incredibly well, with the crowd getting ridiculously hot for the Outrunners. It was the best reaction that anything individually got Saturday by like a mile. On Dynamite, Outrunners cut a tape promo where they mostly said nothing except for not being done with FTR. There's going to be an 8-man involving the tag team title challengers, plus FTR and the Outrunners involved on Collision. The heel side was together backstage. That segment was similarly empty. On Collision, Ricochet backstage refused to share details about his conversation with Gates of Agony, but he brought the camera over to show they had beaten up Blake Christian and Lee Moriarty. Talk about making an impact. Christian and Moriarty, that's accomplishing something, beating up those guys. Holy hell. So on Dynamite, you had Ricochet beat Blake Christian, which was not a match that you should be putting on a go-home show, but at least it had some relevance coming out of Collision. It went way, way too long because Blake has been a jobber to the stars for months. Ricochet's beaten the likes of Will Ospreay, and the heels had a 3-on-1 advantage with Gates ringside the entire time. It was actually ridiculous that this match went as long as it did and that Christian got as much as he did, given the context. On Collision, Athena, Julia Hart, Megan Bayne, and Thekla beat Queen Aminata, Tay and Thunder Rosa in an 8-woman match. Athena and Rosa, they're fighting for the ROH title this weekend. They fought to the back right in the middle of the match. Bayne ran herself into the ring post, but recovered 10 seconds later for a lariat and a running Liger bomb to win. There were extremely strong portions of this match that showed off some of the division's talent. Other parts were a little bit rougher. The worst part is that this was just randomly thrown together rather than AEW like building the women's gauntlet like they did the men's equivalent. And we'll talk more about that later because I actually made a mistake when it came to AEW's build of the women's gauntlet. But it just felt like them saying, these women are probably going to be in there, but they didn't want to tell us. And there wasn't a reason necessarily for these people aligning and wanting to fight each other. They call it an all-star 8-person tag just to kind of do it. Kind of like they do the money matches where, okay, these are 4 people who have no reason to fight each other, so we're going to give them money, even though bigger and better stars fight for no extra money. Like, it just doesn't really fit together. Alex Windsor got another promo highlight package after this, and she told some story about being injured and needing to fight back from it. It was a bit short, but I liked this because it allowed us to get to know her and actually care about her debut. Something neither AEW nor WWE do that often, and when they do it, they don't always do it well, but this was well done. On Collision, Scorpio Sky returned to beat Max Caster in his stupid open challenge. It lasted a minute. This was Sky's first AEW TV match in 10 months, despite, I believe, 2 different return teases in that time. The interesting part was not the match. It was a video package that preceded it. It showed Sky and Christopher Daniels rebuilding SoCal Uncensored, SCU, with Top Flight and Layla Gray training as part of the faction. I'm definitely curious to see more of what that's going to be about. I like the aesthetic that we saw, all of them in the training facility. It looked good. It felt like it fit. To this point, I have had immense struggles to give a flying shit about Top Flight. And certainly SCU back in the day when AEW started, it was cool that another popular internet thing was like part of this new company. In 2025, do people still care about SCU? Can you make people care about it again? Maybe. I'm open to it. There's no question. But to this point, again, with Top Flight, they need something else. And I don't know that Sky and Daniels is really what they need to get over. But again, I'm open. Let's see what happens. On Collision, Willow Nightingale beat a jobber in 2 minutes. No reason for this. And on Collision, footage was shown of Billy Gunn helping up a depressed Anthony Bowens following his Dynamite loss. Gunn criticized Bowens for not letting him be there for him ringside. Bowens said that was not the plan, and he needs results immediately. I'm really struggling to care about this. Maybe the ends will justify the means, but we are certainly not there yet. And seeing Bowens and Gunn on TV kind of doing this every single time, I don't know, man. It's not speaking to me at all. So that wraps up the weekly breakdown of AEW. Before we get to that ultimate preview, I do need to remind you that here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Again, that is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show, and we would greatly appreciate your financial support, because buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, it's our only avenue to getting that. Plus, you get some free content on the back end as well. All that said, it is officially time for the Silver King to bring in vintage Chris Vanini live for the first time all week for our AEW All In Texas Ultimate Preview. Chris, it's been a busy week for you. You did the Big 12 Media Days, you got family in town, and you're going to All In on Saturday. How excited are you?
Very excited. Good to be here. Apology to the listeners for not being on as much during the week. It's just been a very busy week for many reasons. Like you said, I spent 2 full days, Big 12 Media Days. My brother is now in town because we're going to All In. The EA Sports College Football video game came out this week, so I had to play that a bunch and review that. So been a long week, but I'm looking forward to ending it with a heck of a lot of pro wrestling and probably the biggest American show in AEW history in terms of just the venue and what they're going for.
Oh, without question. Yeah. It's the biggest show. I would say it's the second biggest show, period, in AEW history. The first All In being more significant because it was their first stadium show and they were doing Wembley Stadium. That's not to downgrade the second All In, but it paled in comparison to the first in terms of ticket sales and everything else. And this is their first foray into a stadium on American soil, and that's certainly important. You know, ticket sales are approaching 22,000 with 2 days until the show. I had originally said when this was first announced, just like we kind of gave a preview and prediction on ticket sales for the first All In at Wembley Stadium, I originally said 25,000 to 30,000 would be successful here, just given what All In did consecutive years in London, and this being AEW's first true stadium show in the United States. And I'm not counting Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. Technically a stadium, yes, but it's a tennis facility. This is a baseball stadium. It's different. Given AEW does so well in Texas usually, and this is such a legitimately loaded card, I'd say it's probably the best card in AEW history coming in. I'm actually...
Interesting.
I
don't agree. I actually don't agree with that. That's interesting.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah. I'm actually a bit disappointed to see the ticket numbers. I do think they're going to wind up crossing 25,000 by the time the show starts. AEW generally has a strong walk-up. Plus, there's going to be comps, and those will easily add to the distribution number, which is what they will go by here. And there's going to be plenty of those. And let me also be crystal clear. 25,000 is nothing to thumb one's nose at. The gate's probably going to be more north of $2.5 million. That is significant. I just figured for this card and this show, with the amount of time they spent promoting it and some of the matches that have been booked for it, most specifically, Tony Storm against Mercedes Moné and Kenny Omega against Kazuchika Okada, which they're billing as the final time they will fight. Arguably the greatest in-ring rivalry in professional wrestling history. I just figured for a show and a card like this that AEW would wind up doing a lot better from a ticket sales standpoint. And again, I just want to clarify once more so people don't think I'm disparaging them. 25,000 is really good. And a gate north of 2.5 million coming up to 3 million is great. There's no question about that. I just assumed it was going to be better.
Yeah, I'm not sure the reason why. I mean, like they did that basically residency in Arlington for like a month last year. I think they did it at the Esports Arena, which is like right next to the Spaceball Stadium, which is right next to the Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah.
It's a real entertainment.
It was all
district
part of the
out
deal,
there.
by the way. That was connected to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to live in I used to live right there in Arlington. Now I'm an hour away, so it's going to be a pain getting there and back. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's any specific reason why it's not necessarily bigger. I the WWE factor of it all, I don't know. Like,
I
are
don't
people
think
who are
so.
just wrestling fans? Yeah, there's WWE shows. That's their main. If there was no WWE, do I think tickets would be a little bit better? Probably, maybe not. Maybe not significantly.
Yeah.
It's also like I don't know. It's like the middle of the summer in July. You know, I don't know in Arlington, Texas. It's not, you know, a New York or a Vegas. It's not a touristy type of place. So I that may be part of it too. So
that's a good point. They're really drawing people in Texas and probably like Oklahoma and like surrounding areas. I'm not saying no one's flying in for it, but I bet it's a lot less than it would be if it was in LA or New York or Chicago or something like that.
Yeah, or even like a London. Like it's
or London.
It's just like, you know, one of your real metropolises.
Metropoli.
So still very good show. I don't know if the start time being middle of the day has impacted anything since then, but it is interesting.
I mean, I personally believe that's only positive, the early start time, because of how long AEW shows go. I mean, we were talking about this right before we started taping. It's definitely going over 4 hours. 4.5 is what I'm guessing. But if they go to 5, it's a lot easier to digest a 5-hour show that starts at 3 o'clock and ends at 8 Eastern than a 5-hour show that starts at 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? And ends at 1 a.m. So that's the way I look at it. I will say.
Yeah. I did. Like, I just think like kind of like football, like a night game just feels bigger.
It does.
You know,
it does.
It's going to be daylight in a retractable roof stadium. I don't know. Just a thought.
And even kind of like coinciding with this, the Go Home Dynamite, and I know it was in Garland, Texas, and Chris, maybe you can inform, is Garland like an equivalent suburb or is it just a small town?
It's a suburb. It's not nearly as big as Arlington. Arlington's the biggest one. It's kind of on, it's Arlington is directly west of Dallas. Garland is northeast.
Okay.
So it's probably a 45-minute hike. Garland is a lot closer to me. I've been to that
Curtis Colwell
small
Center
arena. Yeah, the Curtis Colwell Center in Garland for AEW many times.
Well, because I was looking at
usually
that.
pack that place.
I was looking at that and I was like, well, did the Go Home Dynamite, you know, did they blow that out? They sold 2,500 tickets. So, I mean, that's along the lines of what they've been doing for TV. They've had some TV that's much better than that, don't get it wrong, but they've been running smaller venues and TVs doing that. So I guess if you're selling between 4,000 and 2,500 tickets for TV and you're able to do 25,000 for a stadium show, maybe that's equivalent. Like maybe that is, you know, the max that they possibly could have done. And maybe my expectations were just overblown. That said, I was thinking about this a year ago or whenever they announced it. And that's when I put the 25,000 number on it. So again, I'm just surprised. I'm not trying to denigrate them in any way. Mm-hmm. It's massively successful. There's no question about that. The gate, it really by gate more so than tickets. If they're doing 2.5 million to 3 million as a gate, that's amazing.
Yes.
It just seems a little weird when they're in a baseball stadium. It's their first stadium show in North America, in the United States. And the card is what the card is. I just assumed it would like get blown up in a major way, and it really hasn't. So, you know, it was a good way to lead there. And let's kind of move into the other topic that you broach. You disagree the card's that strong. Why?
I think it's a good card. I just think like if you're not a big AEW fan, like what jumps out here? I know he hasn't been around, but like Chris Jericho, big name. I'm surprised MJF doesn't have a singles match on here. I'm surprised Ospreay's in a tag team match.
Agree.
You know, Darby Allin is obviously off he's got his other stuff going on, but like some of like the biggest stars are not in positions as I thought. Like the Young Bucks, being in kind of a gimmicky tag team match, instead of going for tag team titles or something like that.
Mhm.
So just that's why the card itself didn't feel as big to me as I don't think it's highlighting AEW's biggest stars in that kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's also no Bryan Danielson, obviously, because of
Yes.
the injury and the quote unquote full-time retirement. He may show up at this event, but he's not booked for the card. Sting obviously is no longer a performer there. He had his retirement. So
By the way, he lives just south of Dallas.
Oh,
Sting
I'm
does.
guessing he will be there, but I would be shocked if he's not there. So I do agree that like some of those names that would draw in outside forces are not necessarily being as heavily promoted because they're not
Right.
in those individual matches. But I do think the card is extremely strong. There's 3 matches. The final 3 matches are all match of the year contenders. As far as I'm concerned, there's others that are going to be really exciting. Let's just get to it. Let's break down the entire card. Now, as we tape the show Thursday afternoon before the go home collision, which I really just wish they weren't running at all, there's 8 matches on the card. I'm assuming a 9th is going to get added just based on what happened on TV the last 2 episodes, one for Collision, one for Dynamite. So let's start there. Unofficial. I think the Trios Championships are going to be on the line. The Ops defending their titles against Death Riders, with the third person for Death Riders being Gabe Kidd, because Pac hasn't been on TV in about 3 months. But Claudio made the challenge last Saturday. Kidd showed up Wednesday. They all fought the final 2 matches of Dynamite. So I just think it's obviously going to get added to the show. And what's going to be interesting here is to see whether this sets up the main event. And when I say that, when we get to the main event of this Ultimate Preview, which will be the main event of All In as well, I'm going to explain why I believe there's going to be a deluge of run-ins. Interference, extremely similar. I hate to make the comparison, but it just happened to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, Bloodline Rules, at WrestleMania 40, main event of night 2. I think it's going to be extremely similar in that way. And if you want a lot of big-time interference in that match, meaning you want big-time baby faces to come to the aid of Hangman Page, your Darby Allins, your potential Bryan Danielson, Sting, whoever the case might be, then you need to ensure that it's a situation where Hangman's an underdog, where he doesn't have that type of support. And the support he has as of right now is the Ops, a 3-person group, and then Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. That's 5 dudes. The Death Riders are 3 dudes beside Moxley if you count Kidd. Now, again, Pac potentially could return, and they have the Young Bucks with them. But with the Bucks and with Kidd, that's 5 on 5. And you need to create a situation where that main event happens. And it's not that Hangman has an equal number of people that have his back, but he has fewer. So I believe, regardless of who wins this match and whether the titles change or not, I believe the Ops are going to get the shit kicked out of them once this is over and basically be eliminated from being able to assist Hangman Page in the main event. I think the Ops retain the titles. Putting them on Death Riders after they lost them to the Ops and the Trios division has done absolutely nothing since. I don't think that makes a shred of sense. So I believe Yuta will take the fall. The Ops will retain. But I think they're going to get their asses kicked when this is over. And we're going to move into the main event with everyone saying, oh, wow, Hangman only has 1, maybe 2 people to help him all of a sudden.
Maybe, but I don't even think that's real for Cody Roman, because you had Jimmy J cancel each other out. You had Cena Solo. You had Rock Rollins, and then you had Undertaker. Cody got an extra person in that whole comeback against him. So maybe.
Well, Rollins was like half a person. Rollins is the equivalent here, because Rollins got taken out and then he lost the title, and then he was pretty much unable to involve himself. So he just held up the chair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I agree. I would say the Ops retain as well. I'm not going to think they get eliminated from this, but it would certainly add to the drama. You know, if you're booking it that way, that's a way to do it, or at least make people think they can't come out.
At least make them think they can't. Exactly. Yeah. TNT Championship, Adam Cole against Kyle Fletcher. I previewed this earlier when I broke down everything that happened and how the match actually got made for the show. I mean, Fletcher's the type of guy that you really do want to strap up, because he had an incredible last year with AEW. The Will Ospreay feud in particular leveled his game up significantly. I just don't necessarily understand what the motivation would be to strap him up here and change the title. Like, what do you then do with the TNT Championship? The TNT Championship has completely lost its luster, and it's not Cole's fault individually. It's like the last 7 people who have held the title.
Yeah.
It's just completely torpedoed. Plus, let's not forget the creation of the International Championship and the Continental Championship. So it went from being the number 2 men's title to the number 4 title, and they just don't care about it. They don't book it well at all. Could Fletcher win? I think he's totally game. And if I was booking the damn territory, I'd put him over, because Cole with that title is literally accomplishing nothing. I just think there needs to be opportunities on this show for baby faces to win and retain titles. And I think this is one where Cole gets it done.
Well, that is the other question, which is, on your big show, do you do a WWE WrestleMania where all the baby faces win?
Right.
You know, and like, as you look at the card, it's possible. Maybe not all, but like most of them. Like, if you want it to be kind of that kind of turning point moment, or at least a moment in time, a fixed point there. I'm going to say Fletcher does win because it's your biggest show, because he's kind of one of those future of your company guys. And Adam Cole is very, very much obviously on the way down.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Fletcher wins.
That's a really good point. I'm not going to change my pick, but yeah, I mean, one guy's on the way up and one guy's on the way down. There's no question about that. Tag team championships, Hurt Syndicate defending against Jet Speed. Also, Christian Cage and Nick Wayne in a triple threat. On Collision, Kevin Knight beat Nick Wayne and Shelton Benjamin in a triple threat. Perhaps I missed something. I thought this match was just supposed to be Shelton and Knight. Benjamin took Wayne's World, then the UFO from Knight. That broke the cover, and he stole the 1-2-3. It made sense for Knight to win, but I was surprised they didn't have him beat Wayne. Then on Dynamite, Jet Speed stole the tag team titles off of camera, and later attacked Syndicate with them as they came out to save MJF in a segment we'll discuss later. They rocked the champions with the straps, ran them into the steel steps in the barricade. Patriarchy then came out to help the faces. They even beat down MVP. They executed 3 concertos to Lashley's knee. Then Knight hit the UFO on Benjamin. If Jet Speed had looked decent against Syndicate at any point prior to Wednesday, this would have mattered as part of the go home, because it would leave you as a viewer to believe they actually have a chance of taking them down. Instead, for me, it rang hollow, because every time they've been in the ring to wrestle, Syndicate have straight up annihilated them, not with weapons, not with bullshit, just by existing. The concertos to Lashley were important, because if he comes out to this match and starts limping, or they work on the knees during the match, then okay, that's a reason why these other teams are able to compete. But without that, this really should be non-competitive. And beyond that, why Cage and Wayne are even in this match when 90% of the build has been about Syndicate and Jet Speed, I simply cannot answer that question. Christian shows up after like a month off, 2 months off. He's like, I want to win the tag team titles with my son. They win one match. I don't even believe, I could be wrong, but I don't even believe they asked Syndicate for the opportunity to be tag team champions. But they got added to this. Jet Speed, all they did was get their asses kicked by Syndicate and lose stuff. And then MVP still gave them a title opportunity. So my prediction here is easy. The Syndicate retains the titles. I can't think of any scenario why you would change them. If any team was going to win them, I would say Jet Speed, but they shouldn't. And the only way to do that, if you were going to, is if you're going to elevate Bobby Lashley up to the main title and you're going to have him go into the main event. If not, Syndicate needs to continue being champions, and AEW needs to do a much, much better job coming out of All In with their tag team division, because it is hot garbage right now.
It's really wild. Like, if you would have said like 2 months ago, WWE's tag team division, even SmackDown's tag team division, kind of dwarfed AEW
it does.
At that point.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Now WWE has thrown in the Wyatt Six and kind of blown that whole thing up at the moment.
They have, but
man,
at least still have established tag teams and stuff and storylines. Like, they have stuff going at least. Yeah.
It's so wild how AEW's tag team division just fell apart. This was the foundational part of the company.
Right.
Forever. You know, Lucha Brothers, Young Bucks, like so Sting and Darby Allin, like so much good stuff there. And then when they brought in the trios title, everything kind of lost itself, and they've never been able to find it since then. In terms of this, I think that the knee shots to Lashley absolutely opened the door to Jet Speed. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Hurt Syndicate win. But yes, I agree. When Hurt Syndicate dropped the titles, that is going to have to be the moment that Bobby Lashley goes for the world title. And when he goes for the world title, he has to win the world title. And based on what's happening at the top of the card, I don't think we're ready for Lashley to do that. So I'm going to go Hurt Syndicate here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jet Speed win.
I wouldn't be surprised. It just really doesn't make sense. I mean, unless there are booking plans, that aren't in my head that I can't figure out, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, the patriarchy part of it all is kind of what threw a kind of a weird wrench into all of this. But you could also make the case, well, if it's Hurt Syndicate Jet Speed, it's too obvious Hurt Syndicate's going to win. So we got to throw a third one in there. We got to throw a third team in there. We got to do the chair shots to make it at least seem plausible. But then they retain anyway.
Well, yeah, the plausible outcome of Jet Speed winning the titles is that they pin Nick Wayne. And Hurt Syndicate doesn't get pinned, and therefore the titles come off of them without them losing. And then they could even just challenge again at the next show and win them back, and then you're done. Like, Jet Speed got a moment, but then you move on. But I wouldn't do that. I mean, Hurt Syndicate, they're the most popular faction group, whatever you want to call them, in the company right now. They're doing really well. And again, unless you're elevating Lashley to the main event, I don't know why you would take the titles off of them. What you need to do is build the tag team division around them and develop teams that are capable of beating them, where fans want to see it happen and believe that they're at least capable of standing up to them. And I do not believe coming into this match that Jet Speed belongs in the same building as them based on what they've done on television, not talent, but based on what they've shown us on TV. So
I agree with that. You can build this division around these two. Now, they should have done it by now. They still haven't, but that's a good way to put it.
Exactly. All right, let's move to the Women's Casino Gauntlet that is going to feature Chris Statlander and Megan Bayne as the first two spots. And the winner of this match will become number one contender for the AEW Women's title. I wanted to offer a correction here because last week I said AEW had spent time building the men's gauntlet, but they did not do the same with the women. I completely forgot the four-way involving Statlander 2 weeks ago was for the number one spot. So that was incorrectly placed criticism, and my bad for getting that wrong. None of you corrected me, so I presume you all forgot or didn't realize either. Now, that said, while both the men and women did get the first two spots decided, there was a huge build for the men's match involving those first two, and that has not been the case for the women. Maybe we get that on the go-home collision, but there has been a lot more attention on the men's gauntlet than the women's gauntlet. So for the number two spot, it was Bayne, Thekla, Aminata, and Ty Mello, all on Dynamite. It's crazy how much Thekla stood out in this match compared to the others. The talent differential was significant. Bayne had Thekla on her shoulders, tossed her over the ropes into the other's ringside. Great looking spot before a tope suicida. She ate Ty KO, and then Mello just wandered around the ring with Thekla standing right beside her, but she didn't want to throw a blow or anything like that because Thekla's offense was planned and she wasn't supposed to throw a punch or something. It was so odd. Aminata delivered off with her head, which looked amazing, and after an distraction, Bayne murked her with a lariat and a running Liger bomb to get the win. Thekla and Aminata brawled backstage afterward. AEW throws a lot of multi-women's matches on their TV shows, and they're usually rough, be it four ways or tag teams. This was the opposite. Tremendous work from three of the four women here, making a real exciting match that sold what is possible in the gauntlet. Bayne was the way too obvious winner. It would have been nice for Thekla to get something, given she debuted and's basically just been another person on the roster. But having Stat and Bayne start this match out, I got to tell you, it's the only time on this show where we can say this.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
And that's an enticing way, Chris, to kick off a gauntlet match.
Doing two of these is interesting. It's again a spot where both of these are. It's well, do you have Megan Bayne do a singles match or something like that? So it's going to be interesting the way these. Do we for sure know the way this Casino Gauntlet match is going to go? Because I feel like every time we do these, the rules are a little bit different.
So yes, they have really solidified the rules for both of these matches, the gauntlets. So the way it works is two people start in the ring, and then after a set period of time, and I don't believe they tell us the exact time. It might purposefully be random, I'm not sure. But after a set amount of time, a third person enters and a fourth person enters and so on and so forth. But unlike a regular gauntlet match where there's a standard number of entrants and you wait for them all to fill in, here it's unlimited, theoretically. It just goes until the match ends. So you can get a 5-way, a 6-way, you can get 9 people, 14 people in there. Whenever the first fall gets counted, that person wins and the match ends.
Okay, yeah. And then that's why That's why being early is considered an advantage.
Well, being early guarantees you a spot because you could theoretically be in the pool of people who could compete in the gauntlet and never actually get into the ring because the match ends before your name is called.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I like that. This is let's put it this way. This is a great match concept. It's this and the Iron Survivor Challenge that WWE put out a couple years ago are the two newest match concepts that have really been introduced into professional wrestling on the mainstream level over the last, let's say, like 10 years. Both of them are great, but the Casino Gauntlet, it is really, really exciting. I actually think that AEW uses it a little too often because it got such a great response initially that they've just started throwing it on TV. I don't want to say regularly, but more regularly than it should. I love the idea of these being featured for All In, similar to how Money in the Bank used to be featured at WrestleMania. Doing two of them in one show, it could get a little bit repetitive. But when you have the roster size that AEW does, it makes sense as a way to get a lot of people on television, and it is sure as shit better than a Battle Royal, no question.
Yes. And so all that said, my pick here is Megan Bayne. We'll get into, obviously, the Women's World Championship and what happens. But she has looked like a star from the moment she came in. Again, I'm thinking it from the booking perspective of on your biggest show, who do you want to highlight as either your now or your future? And Megan Bayne feels like that.
Yeah, I mean, she's immensely impressive. In terms of who's going to be in this match, just to clarify. So Stat and Bayne, we know for sure. It seems obvious that Willow is going to be in the match. Alex Windsor, they've been showing vignettes for her. So she's going to almost certainly make her debut here. And the other women that we just mentioned, like Thekla, Queen Aminata, Ty Mello, some of the people who were in the All-Star match that we talked about. And now I know Athena and Thunder Rosa both have matches, or they have a match against each other on the Ring of Honor show. They could be in it. Julia Hart, possibly. Anna Jay, possibly. And some others, too. And there's also something to be said for will anyone debut in this spot? Again, outside of Windsor, I don't know. You would think that options could have been like Shayna Baszler, Dakota Kai from WWE. I don't believe Dakota's contract is up because she had the 90 days. So I don't think she's eligible. I could be wrong about that. Shayna Baszler reportedly produced NXT on Tuesday night. So it seems like she's still with WWE. A lot of people thought maybe she would come in, debut, and then join Death Riders because Marina Shafir's there. So I don't know how many surprises we're going to get. I think there is something to be said for Windsor coming in because she is a really good wrestler. Making her debut, winning, and just it's a moonshot to the top. She's Will Ospreay's significant other for what that's worth. But the one consistent story they've been telling on TV when it comes to the women involved in this match has been Statlander. Now, it would make a lot more sense for Stat to lose and then fall in with the Death Riders because of that, because she feels like she has nowhere else to go. And I think the best catalyst for that happening would be Willow winning this match. So even though she hasn't really been featured as much as she should because she's one of the best women on the entire roster, I'm going to pick like an underdog, I think, in this spot and go with Willow Nightingale to win.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I think it could work.
Part of my pick for Megan Bayne also goes into who I think is going to win the Toni Storm Mercedes Moné match, which we can get into.
Sure, and that goes into my pick too. Yeah, that goes into my pick with Willow as well. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out with our predictions in a couple of minutes. Let's move to the men's casino gauntlet. That will feature Mark Briscoe and MJF as the first two. It was seemingly said on TV. Mystico was in the graphic. It was also seemingly said on TV that Brody King and Ricochet would be in, but it wasn't officially announced. They're not on the graphic. That's the one weird thing with these gauntlets. I think it would be cool to know the pool of people who could be in. That way you know who you're waiting for. Not everyone, but a lot of them. Like there should at least be like, these are 5 people who have qualified for this event.
So it goes back to the Royal Rumble spoiler that we always talk about, which is like how many people, sometimes WWE would tell us like 25 people in it or something like that. And from picking the winner, this is much more difficult. I like the idea that they don't tell us anybody because like it makes every single person feel like a surprise. So I prefer it this way, even if it is a bit more confusing.
All right, that's fair. So on Dynamite, Briscoe and MJF did their talkie talk. It took a while for them to get to something of substance. For the first, third of this, it was nothing. But Briscoe finally, he said he's proud to be a redneck and he didn't have money, but he was rich in family and friends, whereas MJF is morally bankrupt with no soul. Then he assumed MJF would talk some shit about his brother because if it's a dead family member and it's AEW, it's going to get brought up. He said Jay will go down as an incredible wrestler and human being, and there's a special place in heaven for him. However, MJF pitied Jay for having to look down at Mark becoming a joke, and it should have been him who was in that accident. A brief brawl followed. Syndicate saved MJF from a potential Jay driller. That's when the jet speed attack happened that we mentioned earlier. And then later backstage, Briscoe cut one of his manic, stupid promos, and that kind of killed the intensity for me of what came before it. This went from zero to hero with the quickness. What started as a boring kind of eye-rolling segment, it suddenly became legitimately heated with both Briscoe and MJF. They delivered strong lines, seriously raised the stakes between one another for Saturday. That said, it's a bit odd to entirely build a match like this with a one-on-one feud. Right. And the truth is that MJF and Briscoe, they probably should have just been in a singles match on this show. Yeah. Because that is more exciting for me than some of the other matches that we've already discussed that are on this card. Now, I understand that they're both in the gauntlet. They're going to start, and we're going to basically get a mini singles match between them. But no matter if either of them win or someone else wins, they should probably have a match coming out of this as well. This was the best part of the first half of Dynamite for me on Wednesday. I particularly liked how MJF turned the mention of Jay back on Mark at the end, and he didn't just go to the brother on his own. MJF's always going to do the low blows and take the pot shots and all that type of stuff. But the fact that Mark's the one who brought it up, it kind of made it more interesting than MJF just going there on his own.
Yes. And to bring it back to the location bit, for all the talk about from MJF about, Hicks and rednecks and Texas and all that stuff, like this is in suburban Dallas. This is very much not the country where we live, where I live, where the show is, where any of this is happening. So just for that context, but it always works. I mean, Dallas especially likes to play up the concept of leaning into the Texas stereotypes, even though it very much is not that. Mm-hmm. But this turned into, a really good segment. Honestly, it reminded me of, I mean this as a positive comparison, but when Brie Bella said to Nikki Bella, "I wish you died in the womb."
Yeah.
From way back when, but like this was much
someone else
better,
saying it. Right.
Much more well done.
It was. I now in terms of who's going to be in this match, besides MJF, Briscoe, Mystico has been announced. Like I said, King, maybe. It seemed like he was going to be in it. Ricochet, same thing. I presume Takeshita and or Bandito will be involved. Either whoever doesn't win the ROH title, possibly both of them anyway. Probably some more luchadors from CMLL. Beast Martos, I would assume, is going to get a spot here. We could also see some returning names. I don't know where Jay White and Juice Robinson are along with their recovery, but they would make a lot of sense to come in here. And again, when it comes to a debut standpoint, at least when WWE names, I don't think anyone who got released makes sense to kind of come into AEW for this match. So that kind of leaves us with the names that we mentioned and then, other people surprising and showing up. Unlike the women's match where I'm picking someone who is not necessarily officially in it, here the build seems to completely be about MJF winning the Casino Gauntlet. And I know he wins the Dynamite Diamond ring all the time and he's won pretty much everything else. But this person's going to be the number one contender for the AEW title. And I don't see that being a role that Mystico or Brody or Ricochet or a lot of these other guys should be in. So if Jay White returns, I might go with him. Like I might change it live while I'm watching and say, oh my God, he's going to win. But in terms of people we know that are going to be in this match and that we know for sure are healthy and could possibly be in it, I'm going to go with MJF.
Yeah, it's either going to be MJF or Briscoe or a returning person. There's nobody else actively currently on the roster I don't think would win. Like Ricochet's not winning this thing, right?
I can't see it. I mean,
yeah, like so I'm leaning Jay White as well because you just got to think like also we don't know when this championship match is going to happen, right?
No, it is. I don't believe it's a contract situation, but I don't think they specify. I don't think they specified when the number one contender gets their match either.
But we presume they're probably going to wrestle Moxley or Page at some point, and so who kind of fits in that? I'm going to go Jay White because as bad as it's been since he got there, I'm still holding out hope that they can get it right. So I'm going to say we get a returning Jay White and he wins.
The thing with Jay White,
and then we move into MJF, Briscoe doing their own thing.
The thing with Jay White is it's some their fault, AEW's fault, and some his bad luck. Like he's gotten injured multiple times, and that sucks, and that's unfair. He was seemingly building a lot of momentum before the last time he just got hurt, but the booking of him upon joining AEW and shortly thereafter, his first year, was atrocious. I mean, I couldn't believe how poorly he was getting booked initially. So if he does show up in this match, I'll put a caveat on my prediction as well, because I would definitely pick him if I knew he was going to be in this. If he shows up, I'm picking Jay White. If not, it's MJF. I just don't really see Briscoe or anyone else winning.
I could also see Briscoe winning and like getting a title shot on Dynamite and losing.
If Mox retains the title, though.
Yes, if Mox is the one who retains. So like I actually think it might be, I don't know. I feel like it might be more likely that Briscoe wins just because MJF kind of has like other stuff going on.
So let's make that let's make that our pairings then. I have MJF and White, and you have Briscoe and White then.
Yeah.
In case Jay shows up. That brings us into the upper portion of this card. Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay against the Young Bucks. If the faces win, the Bucks will lose their EVP titles. If the heels win, Swerve and Ospreay cannot challenge for the AEW title for a full year. I did think it was a little strange that the faces all stood tall on the Go Home show. And I know there's a collision on Thursday, but it was nevertheless odd that all of them got up on all of the heels. And that tells me not necessarily that Hangman Page is going to lose in the main event. It tells me that some faces are going to lose. Now, what I've been saying about this match and the stipulation in particular is it is completely uneven. The Bucks losing their EVP titles, which they've held for in reality for 5 years, and kayfabe for, let's say, 3 when they've made it like an on-air thing, right? Them losing these, all the power and the money and the prestige, it really doesn't compare to a couple dudes just not being able to challenge for a title for 1 year when there's 3 other men's titles and tag team titles that they can also go after. So to me, it's extremely uneven in that regard. What I want, selfishly, is for Swerve and Ospreay to win, because I am so sick of the EVP storyline, the Bucks' existence in this role, and everything that's come with it. The elite formation with Okada and Jungle Boy, who doesn't even exist anymore as far as I know. I mean, maybe he shows up in the gauntlet as well. That's a surprise. That just petered out. They threw the Bucks in with the Death Riders for convenience. They didn't even actually explain that in a significant way. And everything that the Bucks were doing that we thought was going to happen with Hangman and Kenny Omega just kind of disappeared because it was terrible booking and they had to make a change. So my hope upon hope, fingers crossed, is that Swerve and Ospreay win this, because I just don't want the Bucks as EVPs anymore. Let them be a tag team. Let them go after the titles and do their thing, because a lot of people love them as a tag team. I don't, but a lot of people do. However, from a creative standpoint, based on everything that is happening with AEW and the way that this card is shaping up, it would make so much more sense and be so much more interesting if Swerve and Ospreay lost. Because if those guys cannot challenge for the title for a year, that actually self-corrects AEW's crowded main event picture right now. Because there's a lot of people who can go after the world title. They are stacked when it comes to main event caliber wrestlers. And if you take Swerve and Ospreay out of that equation, there's a couple different things you can do. First, you can have them feud with each other, angry over this result for a while. Second, you could instead have them stay teamed up and they present legitimate challengers for Hurt Syndicate. They can win the tag team titles, help revitalize that division. Then eventually when they lose, it becomes acrimonious between them. They split, they feud for a while. And by the time you're done with that, you're pretty much at a year. And then they're able to challenge for the titles again. And let's not forget, most likely, AEW All In next year, 2026, will be back in Wembley Stadium. And if Ospreay is going to win an AEW title for the first time, it probably should be happening in England at this point. And I don't think they're going to do that at Forbidden Door. So for all those reasons, and because it's the most interesting potential booking scenario, I have the Young Bucks beating Swerve and Ospreay in this match.
Interesting. You've explained all of that very well. To the point where I think it's plausible, because I did not think it was plausible when this was first booked. My thought was, this is the out to get out of the god awful EVP thing that's been going on for so long. It makes no sense. The Young Bucks have been irrelevant for an astonishingly long time. And this to me feels like the opportunity to just cleanly end it and do whatever is next. And that's mostly what I want. My pick is Strickland and Ospreay for that reason. I just think, like, on the whole, I wish this was like Swerve, Hangman again, and Ospreay, Moxley for the title. Like, that's what my thought was going to be a long time ago when we got to All In. Like, this would be the crowning moment for Ospreay. And it's once again not happening. And his ascension to the top of the company that seems so obvious is taking so long. And he's a young guy, so like, you got time. But I don't know. It's been slower than I expected. As it relates to this match, I think Strickland and Ospreay can win and still go for the tag team titles.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's a way to do it if you don't think you're going to do Ospreay taking the title at Forbidden Door. So sticking with the faces here and really hoping the Young Bucks just like figure it out. I don't know. My consumption of AEW has not been the same since Being the Elite went away. Like, that was my gate into indie wrestling, the original All In, their whole deal, the Elite, all that stuff. And ever since it's been years now, but ever since it went away, it feels like they've never been the same either. It's not like they stopped doing this thing that took up time and then went on to do bigger and better things. They've been doing just unimportant stuff for so long. And so I hope this is a reset, because they are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. And I know they're obviously not young anymore. They're in 35 and 40, but go back to like trying to build up this tag team division again when you're done with this.
Yeah, it's interesting that the quote unquote best tag team match on the show is not going to be involving the titles, which is always interesting. You know, one other reason I wanted to add this in before we move on, one other reason that Swerve and Ospreay losing would make sense in this case is because it would serve as a further catalyst for Swerve to assist Hangman, given he has not done so since Ospreay's been begging him to get Pages back over the last 2 months. Because if Swerve knows, the character Swerve knows, he can't be champion for a year no matter what, the least he can do is ensure that the EVPs have less power and the strap gets taken off the Death Riders. And if the result of that is Hangman having the title, it's better than the alternative, the lesser of two evils. So that's another reason I think they can legitimately lose, and this stipulation can get implemented. It's also a far better stipulation, obviously, than the whole deal that Cody Rhodes did, never challenging for the AEW title. That was hugely problematic, because if he's going to be your guy or one of your top guys, he's going to need to go after that top strap. Ospreay and Swerve, especially Swerve having already been champion, waiting 1 year and then Ospreay winning it All In next year, because again, the calendar year would end before the next All In. I think it's going to be a little bit later. It just makes all the sense in the world as far as I'm concerned. I don't know that they're going to do it. It is a more intriguing stipulation than just the EVP titles being on the line. I'm glad they rectified that storyline a little bit, but I am going to be interested to see the way this transpires. Let's move to what I believe are a trio of main events on this show. First, the unified title is on the line. I'll explain this in a moment. Kenny Omega, the international champion, against Kazuchika Okada, the continental champion. So get this. The entire time that this match has been booked and built to, and even before it was announced, I assumed it was going to be Omega Okada, final match, fifth meeting, and the titles would get unified into one new title. And AEW on television debuted that title, calling it the unified title. Tony Khan this week said the titles are not being unified.
What?
Despite it being called a unified title and a new belt having been created to go to the winner. He suggested the winner might carry all 3 titles. And then he outright stated the histories of the international and continental title would continue. They would still do the tournament, etc. It's completely nonsensical and convoluted.
What?
AEW.
We're adding, instead of unifying titles, we're just making up and adding more titles.
They're making up a title called the unified title. And my assumption is that once whoever wins loses, they just keep the unified title. Like, I don't think that title is going to then exist. It seems like it's more of a prize for the winner as opposed to another title that's being added to AEW, because it looks like a world championship. If you remember that, the picture of it, what it looks like, it looks great. So I'm confused. It's nonsensical. It's convoluted. AEW has done this throughout its entire history when it comes to titles and whether they get merged or they don't get merged or they get renamed and all of a sudden it matters, but didn't matter before. Let's just put that aside and talk about the match itself.
Okay.
I can't understand what's happening, and maybe we just need to see it play out and whether it makes sense. On Dynamite, there was an extended video package for this match involving some fresh promos from them. Omega said he would be a different guy in this match. Okada promised to hurt him and maybe kill him. This was extremely well done, but given how much time has been spent on Don Callis being involved in this and briefly Kota Ibushi, I'd have preferred a segment where we actually just got to hear the promos. These two guys speak, no other bullshit. They spoke more building their matches in New Japan than they did building this in the United States, which is supposed to be their final meeting. That to me is disappointing. Still, this is the best set of video packages that AEW has ever put together for a match. They have made it feel epic. Nothing really touches this. The Omega Okada series, it's the best group of matches I've ever seen in my entire life. 1 and 4 in particular are 2 of my favorite matches of all time. And I'm expecting this. My floor on this match is 5 stars. Now, my ceiling is 5 stars as well, but that means expectation needs to get hit. And I really have no doubt that it's going to, Chris. This really could go either way. Omega winning, Okada winning, both completely plausible. But given Omega was a founding father of AEW, and given Okada, if memory serves, got the better of him in the series, I think he's 2-1-1. I could be wrong about that, but I think I'm correct. This makes a lot of sense to me to be a crowning moment for Omega. He's in kayfabe, the underdog coming in because of the diverticulitis, which somehow flared up, even though that's not what happens after someone has surgery on it. So, because he's the one who had blood spurting out of his mouth and needed Ibushi to save him, and because his former friend and manager Callis is with Okada, for all those reasons, I do believe the odds should heavily be stacked on Omega coming out as the unified champion.
I have not watched all the Okada Omega matches. I know I should.
Shame.
I did watch the last one. Maybe I'll try to fit it in before Saturday if I have time to.
Dude,
watch some more
it's
of
gonna be
them.
like 4 hours of wrestling to watch. I don't know that you're gonna be able to do that. Yeah.
My pick is Omega as well. I do wonder if just expectations are going to be too high.
They are.
These guys are not what they were back then, which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
They're older. They've gone through more. Like you saying, like the floor is a 5-star match.
Yeah.
I don't think I would say that.
Then it'll be. I'm saying my expected floor going in. Like if they go below a 5-star match for me on my personal rating, I'm going to be floored.
That's the thing. I feel like the most likely outcome is a really, really good match that doesn't meet 5-star potential just because of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Which is fine. So we'll see. It is cool that they're doing this, whatever the frick all the title stuff means. But it is when Okada came to AEW, this was the point you had to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And so both guys kind of took some different paths, and Kenny had to come back from a lot, and we're finally here.
Who do you have winning?
Omega.
All right. Let's move to what's definitely the co-main event. Women's Championship, Toni Storm defending against Mercedes Moné. There was a promo segment on Dynamite with Toni saying come in her first line and Mercedes calling her a mark In the second line, Monet's titles were all hung up on the ropes. I thought that was a pretty cool visual. Mercedes toasted to herself. She made a comment about the champagne being bad, but she's the one who brought it, so I was kind of confused. Tony told her to save the performative bullshit for her entrance. Storm's entire gimmick is performative, mind you. Tony said nothing more than trying to get pops, just one line after another, trying to get a pop from the crowd, which she did every single time. Mercedes said she's better, classier, and unstoppable because the AEW title was her legacy, and she's the one-woman revolution. Storm responded saying, "We're all going to die and nothing matters. There's no such thing as legacy." Okay, hold on. Your entire gimmick is timeless, which is about you and your name living forever. So how is there no such thing as legacy? And she also said Monet could have all the titles in the world except hers. Mercedes said Sunday instead of Saturday, so fans chanted, "You fucked up," because heaven forbid someone make a mistake. Then they toasted. Tony said, "Eat shit, bitch," twice, and Monet escaped an attack. The part of this that worked for me was the aura of them being in the ring together for a go-home segment. The construction of the back and forth, I felt, was sloppy. Storm's part was entirely one-liners, just trying to elicit reactions, which again was successful. It just lacked any real depth, especially when the main point of her promo was literally the antithesis of her entire gimmick. I don't understand how people are overlooking that. Mercedes was largely fine. She was the B-side of this segment with the champion standing tall at the end. The Saturday-Sunday mess up, it only made me laugh specifically because she called herself the one-woman revolution. And Evolution is booked Sunday. It actually would have been a more fitting moniker if she was main eventing that show. So this was solid, and the moment worked as a go-home. They've done a really solid build this entire time. I just felt like this could have been far better on Wednesday. I'm glad it opened the show, though, so that other build for All In did not overshadow it.
Yes, I thought this was a good, solid segment overall. I thought the funny part of Mercedes messing up the date was that the crowd like really reacted to it.
I thought it was overdone. Like, why? Like, I know she's a heel, but it was a minor
that's
mistake.
part of it. I mean, like no other crowd but an AEW crowd would react so much to the day of the show being wrong. Like that's why it was kind of, the whole thing was kind of funny to me. I know you don't like the timeless gimmick, and you kind of never really have, which is totally fair. Mm-hmm. I have found it entertaining. It's gone on way longer than I thought it could. I still like it because it's just different. And on a show where so many people sometimes feel the same, she continues to make herself stand out. So it's been fun kind of watching Mercedes post on social media, like her and Tony back in WWE and kind of the stuff. There's a lot of, not lore, but just there is a lot of stuff between them. And it is cool that this is happening between them on such a big stage.
My take on the timeless gimmick is when it's at its best, at its peak, it's incredible. And it's the best thing going. The problem is because it has such high peaks, a large portion of the audience watching AEW believes every single time that Tony goes out there and just makes innuendos and one-liners that it's incredible and the greatest thing that's ever happened. When a lot of that is really low-hanging fruit that anyone could do if they had a script writer or if they just sat for a little bit and came up with some innuendos about sex that they could kind of throw out there, and cursing. Like, it's very cheap. This is why there's a lot of comedians out there who don't work blue, because they think being able to say F or whatever word, it's cheap. It's a cheap way to get a laugh. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, but the level to which Storm floods her promos with that type of stuff, when she doesn't do it, you go, oh my God, this is what she's capable of doing. Why does she lower herself to going to the basement level of this gimmick? And this promo, I felt, outside of the part in the middle, which again was antithetical to her character, much of this was the basement level of her gimmick, whereas the penthouse level of her gimmick is incredible. So that's my take on Timeless.
One other thing I'll say, AEW is so much better at bleeping stuff out than WWE. And they have been for a very long time. They just like cut the mic and you just hear the crowd react. Like they put in a crowd noise instead of just muting everything for like 5 seconds the way WWE does. I still can't believe WWE hasn't figured this out. But it happened in this promo, and I think the MJF one too, maybe, where AEW is just so much better at cutting out a word that can't be on television and completely keeping the flow of everything, and it doesn't distract you.
The only thing I can think is that Dynamite might be on a greater delay.
Could be.
And because of that, it's easier to find that moment and hit the button. Whereas with WWE, they just smack a mute because they're more live. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true. I'm just guessing because you're right. It is way better with AEW, and it allows the rest of the promo, the sentence, whatever the case, to come through. It also lets you know kind of what the word is because you can contextualize it. Whereas with WWE, it's muted. You're just looking at the crowd or, nothing, and you can't hear anything. In WWE, I wish they at least kept the commentary mics on. So if you're muting the crowd and the other mics, you could still hear, the commentary for the match. Instead, the whole thing goes blank for 30 seconds and you're like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Anyway, back to this. The only other note I had before we get into picking, I don't understand why this is not winner take all like Omega Okada. You have two different matches where both people are champions, and one of them, both the titles are on the line, and the other, it's not. Why wouldn't Tony Storm want the TBS title?
Okay, so you're saying just I was going to say, I don't think Mercedes can put 7 belts on the line.
The AEW title that exists, the TBS title. Why is that on the line here? It should be.
I think it's a fair point. I just generally think unifications are bad, and I hate double champions. So I personally don't mind it, but you're right, it would make more sense.
And also, it could be like part of the storyline could have been Tony saying, well, you love having all these titles. Let me take one off your hands. Like, let me, take a dent in this, whatever she is, 6 belts Monet, that gimmick that she's got running. Regardless of that, in terms of prediction for the match, this really could go either way. Tony wins and Mercedes begins a downward spiral that leads to her losing one title after another until she hits the basement and then works her way back up. That's a great, gimmick. As far as I'm concerned, you cannot have Monet win all these titles one by one by one, parade herself around, never loses in AEW, and then she finally gets to the mountaintop, which is Storm on this show, and she loses. The way she's been booked is as AEW's biggest female star, despite the fact that Tony Storm has been doing apples to apples, let's say better work, but Mercedes has been doing great work. Don't get it twisted. But you can't do this whole CEO character over the entire time that she's been with this company. And then when she finally gets an opportunity at the top strap, not give it to her on the first try. So for all of those reasons, and maybe there's something that happens here where a new heavy gets debuted or someone comes out and helps her, or maybe it's squeaky clean. I would do it squeaky clean. Either way, I do think it's kind of like a 50-50 proposition, but for me, Mercedes Moné comes out as the AEW Women's Champion.
Interesting. I'm going to go Tony Storm here. I think the belt collecting devalues all the belts, and I don't think AEW wants to stick 2 of those on her.
Interesting.
Mercedes, what's that?
Interesting.
Mercedes has, her All In history. Remember, she shows up at the first one 2 years ago in Wembley. Mm-hmm. She's there in the crowd, but nothing. And then the second one last year, she beats Britt Baker. So it's not a situation where you have such a big star and you got to have them win on the big stage because you've done that. And I think Tony has been such a good foundational part of this women's division that she's going to retain here. And what I think is going to happen is she is eventually going to lose it to Megan Bayne, who I picked to win the Women's Casino Gauntlet. Because if you remember the first time that Tony and Megan Bayne fought earlier this year, Tony Storm won, but kind of the idea was like she survived it.
Yeah, skin of her teeth. Yeah.
Yes. And so you go back to that, and now Megan Bayne's got more experience and she wins the title and she's your new champion. So that is the sequence of events I think happens in why Tony Storm wins here.
And that's why I went with Willow Nightingale in the Gauntlet, because if Mercedes wins, you can harken back to that feud with Willow.
Yeah.
It rekindles it. And then you could even give Willow an out to not beat Mercedes by having Stat interfere, cost her again.
No, you have to have Willow win at that point.
I mean, I would, but you can't, not immediately after Mercedes wins. If Willow becomes the immediate number 1 contender, then she can't win right away. So,
well, that's again where
I agree with having her, but I agree with having her win eventually. So you have her go after her. Stat interferes, costs her, whatever the case. Stat goes to Death Riders. Willow doesn't have the title, so they feud for a bit. Willow overcomes Stat, gets another opportunity against Monet, finally beats Mercedes, becomes AEW champion. Because Willow really should be champion at some point. Before like the end of 2026 at the latest.
Yes.
She's way too talented and way too over with the fans to just kind of exist in this division and not have something substantial to her name. And
I also think Willow taking it off of Megan Bayne would be a big, not only a big moment, but also a big meaty women moment.
It would. Megan has like a kind of a character issue as far as I'm concerned, like the whole Greek goddess type deal, but she doesn't really speak. Like you don't hear her cut promos regularly, and Penelope Ford's just kind of there. She's not in the position right now where even though physically and from a talent standpoint in ring, she could definitely be AEW champion.
Well, it's like
I don't buy her in that
you
role.
You do it like Jade Cargill, but she's a better wrestler.
Right, but Jade Cargill was never champion. She was only the TBS champion, don't forget.
I guess, but she, was undefeated for so long.
She was.
You kind of build up the monster champion and then have Willow take her down.
Yeah.
Like a year from now. I think it'd be great.
It could work. All right, let's get to what is definitely the main event of this show, the AEW Championship on the line. Jon Moxley defending against Hangman Page in a Texas death match. Mox cut a promo backstage at Dynamite, recalling that he lost their prior Texas death match with this complete... let me do that again. Mox cut a promo backstage at Dynamite, recalling that he lost their prior match with this exact stipulation after completely forgetting that it happened the prior week when this all was laid out on television.
This was good.
Mox said he's lost matches, but never a war of attrition, and he doubted Page could hold the line against him. I will note the other Texas death match was also a war of attrition, and he did lose that, so wasn't totally right there. Regardless, he said Hangman was a pathetic victim with one chance to prove him wrong because he was all the way in for this match. This was the third or fourth week in a row where Mox straight up crushed his promo. It makes it even crazier that he spent the prior 8 months saying absolutely nothing pretty much every week since he won the title. At least it all came together in the end. Better late than never, but better early than late. You know what I mean?
Yes. This was better. This was probably the best possible thing you could do finally to set this up.
Yeah. The last 3 weeks of Mox have been great. And even Hangman's promos as well. The only thing that bothers me with Hangman really on this entire build is like his perm. I know it's not a perm. It's just the way his hair is, but it just looks odd. I wish it was longer, like old school Hangman Page. That's really my only criticism for Hangman. He's been doing a great job. Mox over the last month has built this match extraordinarily well, and it does feel important, and it definitely deserves the Texas Deathmatch stipulation. Now, hearkening back to what I said earlier, Chris, I am expecting this to be AEW's version of the WrestleMania 40 main event with tons of interference and surprises. First, let's also note the Texas Deathmatch is so appropriate as the main event of a major AEW show. How many times have we seen, hardcore shit and bloodletting and all this? That's AEW's signature at this point, so you might as well make it the main event of their equivalent for WrestleMania. We're going to 100% get Darby Allin returning at some point in this match. And I should also note, I keep doing asides here, but the Texas Deathmatch stipulation, just like Bloodline rules for Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, it allows interference because it's no DQ. If you did a regular match with all the interference, it makes a lot less sense. So again, we're 100% going to get Darby Allin. That's obvious. Eddie Kingston, if cleared, would be a guarantee as well. Bryan Danielson seems obvious, given him getting taken out is how the Death Riders started. Plus, they pulled out the plastic bags for the first time since Danielson on the Go Home Dynamite. They could have used this many other times before. They just did not. I do actually believe they pulled them out backstage one time, but didn't use them. This is the first time they did it in the ring on camera. They kind of hit us over the head with the fact that Bryan's probably going to come out. Sting is a possibility as well. I didn't even realize he lived there, so I'm glad you pointed that out earlier, Chris. Now that I know, I would say Sting and Darby Allin come out together. But
he lives in, I believe it's Waxahachie, just south of Dallas.
Gotcha. The problem with involving both Bryan and Sting, and this is what I mentioned earlier, is that there's only so many Death Riders and Young Bucks, and the Ops exist, and Ospreay and Swerve exist. So that is why, going back to what I was talking about earlier, it would make a lot of sense if the Ops get taken out, Swerve and Ospreay run out, but the Death Riders have too many dudes, and then that's when you see a combination of Danielson, Darby, and Sting, and that's how the show ends. That's how Hangman gets his upper hand and ultimately wins the AEW title. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just Darby when all is said and done. but I am expecting a ton of interference. And I would honestly be floored if after all this time, they finally got Mox doing a good job. They finally got the Death Riders as something people are interested in, when for 6 to 9 months, it just was not the case. I would be floored if they go this far in the main event of this show in Texas, in a Texas death match, and they do not have the Cowboy win the AEW title. Hangman Page walks out of All In as your champion.
Hangman the Cowboy, by the way, from Virginia.
From Virginia. A teacher from Virginia. Right.
Yes, kind of like the Young Bucks thing. I feel like Moxley's title reign has been so bad, and this Death Riders thing has been so bad. And the only reason to drag it on for this long is to end it at this moment. It has to end here. It has to be Page. Now, I don't think it should have been Page here in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I would have done Will Ospreay here. All the stuff you mentioned, everybody coming out, the Cody Vengers, that was for Cody Rhodes, who had never been the champion before. You know, who was like the up and coming guy. Hangman has already been champion. He's already been through this. Will the Young Bucks give him a nod this time when he maybe wins the championship, like they did when he beat Omega? Yeah, he beat Omega for the championship. That's probably AEW's high moment when that happened. Was that year 2 or 3 of the company at Revolution? That was the best long-term story they had and still have ever built. Was Page the first time around. The second time around, I just haven't been as into it. One, his theme sucks. His music. Like, this is the heel Hangman Page theme. I'm really hoping when he comes out for this match, they go back to the original Hangman theme, which is so much better. Like, it's the music you want playing, you know, in a celebration at the end. His current music is not really for that. It's heel music, basically. You don't want to be walking out of the stadium when you hear that music playing. So,
I wouldn't be surprised if they bring it back for his walk to the ring, but they should definitely do it if he wins the title. I agree.
Yeah. So go back to that, because that was one of my thoughts coming out of Dynamite. My brother said the same thing. Like, we don't like that theme. So I don't think it should have been Page in this moment, but given what it is, and given they have built this up to a properly big match, I think Page wins, becomes a 2-time champion. And maybe after the show, we start the discussion. Is he the face of AEW, like in its history? He might be. As a 2-time champion, technically, you know, mostly homegrown guy. He's kind of their new Sting. He's kind of the Sting of the company.
Yeah,
not Darby Allin.
Yeah, I think he's the main character of AEW. I wouldn't necessarily call him the face of the company, because, just being factual, no one knows Hangman Page. Like right. You put his picture up to 100 sports fans, no one knows who he is. People know Roman Reigns. They know Cody Rhodes. They know Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley. I don't think they would necessarily know. No, they would, because they think of Dean Ambrose. You know, Daniel Bryan potentially. Again, I'm not saying the same. I'm not saying the same number as would know Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes, but certainly a significant number would know some of them. But Hangman Page's picture up there, they don't know who he is, right? Same, unfortunately, with other dudes that are in the company. MJF, you know, Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega.
My whole thing is,
you know?
Ospreay, I think Ospreay can reach that level where he is a definitive face of the company, and you make people who maybe don't watch a lot of wrestling can figure out who this guy is because of all the crazy stuff he does.
I think you can do that based on his physicality. I don't know from a personality standpoint. And
I think his personality is like, why you put him on, like,
he's just
Jimmy
a wild
Kimmel
person
with that accent and all that stuff. Like, I could see people like getting behind this kind of goofy, super British guy who does crazy
on
flips.
Jimmy Kimmel show. No, I mean,
yeah,
I don't think Will Ospreay's a late night talk show dude. Let me just put it that way.
I think it'd be, but he'd be like that. That'd be the.
I think you could put Swerve on those shows.
Yeah, I'm not a Swerve guy like you.
That's okay, but I think he would fit on those shows and know how to hobnob and do all that. Will's just a wild person. Like, he's kind of a psychopath.
What I mean. That's what would get the attention.
Yeah, but that's not the person you put front and center.
Anyway, we're off topic.
We are off topic. The point is, Hangman's the main character of the stories that AEW is telling. He's the main character of the kayfabe that is All Elite Wrestling. And that's why if you were going to have one person topple the big bad who's been hiding the title all this time in a briefcase, and by the way, that title, when it does like get unveiled, it should be scuffed up and shit. Like it's going to end up being perfectly shiny and stuff, but it's been thrown around in a briefcase for, 8 months, knocked up and down, used as a weapon. That thing should be like dull as hell, but okay, I digress.
I'd say, remember when Sting took the title off of Hogan, that was the bent title, wasn't it?
Oh man, I don't even
back in the day. Remember the WCW title was bent at the top for a very long time.
I have no memory of that at all. I'm not saying you're wrong. I wasn't a WCW guy, so I can't even.
Yeah,
that's like a small, little story note that I wouldn't remember. I'll look it up after this. Regardless, he's the main character of the company, and that's why you have to put him over in this spot. The only reason you wouldn't is, I guess, if the plan was always going to be Darby Allin and they stick to that plan. But I gotta believe, maybe 2 years ago, Tony Khan would have done that. Like his plan would have been Darby and he would have stuck with it and everyone would have been worse off for it. In 2025, he has smartened up as a booker. And I can't imagine he would make that type of mistake.
I think the other option, I think it's perfectly plausible that Moxley wins here and loses to Ospreay at Forbidden Door. Yeah.
It's plausible.
I mean, I'm not saying it's likely. I think it's possible for sure.
It is definitely possible and plausible. But don't forget, Forbidden Door is a multi-company show. Now, that's not to say they haven't done AEW matches, which they have in the past. But you would think, the main event of that show will probably be like an AEW guy and someone from New Japan or CMLL or whatever the case. I don't know that you would change your single biggest title after all this time on that show just because it happens to be in London when that's not an all-in or double or nothing level show.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. So that is the AEW All In Texas Ultimate Preview. Chris, let's wrap this up with our pre-show expectation grades. As always, all of you listening will have your opportunity to vote for pre- and post-show grades on Twitter at Getting Overcast. But when we do this segment on the show, Chris, you get the opportunity to go first. What is your expectation for AEW All In Texas?
Gonna go with an A. And it's partly because I'm going to be there in person, and I always kind of raise the expectation when I'm going to a show. I haven't been to an AEW pay-per-view before. I've been to Blood and Guts. I've been to Winter is Coming and some stuff like the big Dynamites, but not a pay-per-view before. And AEW has generally done a good job of throwing everything they have at these all-in stadium shows. They try to make important stuff happen and things you're going to remember and have stuff happen. It's very nice that at the moment this is 8, maybe 9 matches. Last year's, just looking it up, it was 12, but that included 3 pre-show matches, so I guess it was 8. So this isn't going to be like too long of a card, I don't think. But it is your big one, so you want to go long. So I'm going to go with like a low A, so it's like a 94? Is that the beginning of an A?
You're the worst, man. No, 93 is the beginning of an A, but 94 was my grade. That's what I wrote down. That's what I was doing. I think it has a chance to exceed that. All In has a chance to be the pay-per-view of the year. 3 main events are extraordinary matches with all of them have 5-star ceilings, the final 3 matches on this card. Will I wind up liking them as much as I think I might? That all depends on what happens and how I feel, on Saturday. But those are really carrying the water for this card. Even though I'm not a Young Bucks fan, the idea of Swerve and Ospreay teaming up against them, knowing the Bucks are great in the ring, that creates a 4th match on this card that could be fantastic. And then those 2 gauntlet matches, they're generally insane and a lot of fun. So you have just there 6 of the 8 matches that have been announced that I am actively interested in watching. And that is not normally the case for me when it comes to AEW pay-per-view cards. So I'm at a 94 out of 100, a full A coming in. I think there's a great chance they succeed past it. There's a great chance this winds up being pay-per-view of the year, maybe even in the 2025 Getting Over Awards, aka
the Meaties.
But I also think that gives it some room to fall below expectation, but still be in the A range or the A- range. And of course, we're not going to know until Saturday. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited to go there in person. Again, my brother's in town. We're going. We're sitting at, I think, in the 2nd level. If anybody else is going and wants to say hi, shoot me a DM on Twitter. I think one person has, but I forgot to reply because it's been a very busy week. But if anybody's going, let me know. And yeah, hope it's a good show, man. Like there's so much, obviously WWE stuff going on. It's so important for professional wrestling to have two really successful companies. And I really, really hate that they're going head to head. I hate that WWE is doing these shows this weekend, just as a fan of wrestling. So I hope AEW All In Texas goes really well.
Personally, on that note, because we didn't really talk about it, I don't care at all about Evolution being Sunday. Like, it's a different day. Suck it up. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm not saying that you were saying it was a problem. What WWE's idea is let's put 3 shows together. That way we have one happening while it's happening, another happening once it ends, and then a third the next day. That way no one is talking about All In because they'll be talking about our product. But if the Saturday shows weren't happening and Evolution just happened to be on Sunday, I would have zero problem with that whatsoever. I agree, though, that booking all 3 of them on this weekend sucked. And then especially putting NXT Great American Bash head-to-head with All In, what do you think you're accomplishing? No one is... I mean, I'm as big of an NXT fan as exists. This current version, the black and gold version, not so much 2.0 in between. But there is no chance that you were going to get me to watch NXT live over All In. And I can't imagine there's anyone out there except for people who don't want to spend the $50. I can't imagine there's anyone out there who would say, I'm a wrestling fan, I like both of these products, and I'm going to watch NXT live over AEW. It just doesn't make any sense. What they're really doing is sacrificing NXT because they're putting it head to head. And this is not the first time they've done it. It's not going to be the last time they've done it. NXT deserves better. It's a really good product. People should be able to watch it live and not have to worry about another show happening simultaneously or before or after it or whatever the case might be. That is why this is so frustrating. I don't care about WWE competing. Grow up. It's business. It's 2025. This shit happens all the time in every industry. I don't want to hear that. It is bad for wrestling fans that they're not allowing us to enjoy all of these products separately. It hurts us. And WWE is hurting itself. That's the other thing. I don't necessarily think Evolution is hurt by that. I do believe Evolution is hurt. We talked about this on our Evolution Ultimate Preview, our prior show. It's hurt by being the third event in a weekend in a city where there's also a Beyonce concert. So they're not doing that any favors. And by kind of sacrificing NXT, by doing it here, extremely frustrating. My biggest hope on Saturday, Chris, is that you get home early enough so that we're able to get both these shows done, but I'm not going to rush you, obviously. I want you to be safe driving back. But I am, as of right now, anticipating that we will be taping our AEW All In instant analysis Saturday evening, probably after Saturday night's main event has already started. I'll have to pause that on the television. We'll tape that show. I don't know what you'll be able to do for the WWE show that night, if you'll be able to be on it, but I'll tape that at the end of the night. And then, of course, we'll cycle back on Sunday for the WWE Evolution instant analysis. So that's the schedule going forward here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Don't forget, already in the feed, we have Saturday night's main event and Evolution, Ultimate Previews, Great American Bash as well. 2 WWE episodes already this week for your ear holes if you have not heard them yet. It's going to be 6 episodes in 6 days, all of it performance-enhancing audio. That's what we do right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. On the way out, some reminders. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full-length audio episodes, full-length video interviews. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky. Episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that. You can send in questions and comments for the show, and you can vote in those polls on Twitter at Getting Overcast. Please remember,
It's all about Defy.
so head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we'll read it live right here on the show. And please do not forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis posts every week. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We're giving you 6 episodes this week. Please support us financially. That wraps it up for today. I appreciate Vintage Chris Vanini taking some time away from his family, his busy work week to tape this live for Vintage. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.